This is the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, giving you weekly sports analysis, opinions, and discussion. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and J-Raff.
It's still football season. Or is it? It's now football season, I guess. You know why we know it's now football season?
How do we know it's now football season?
Well, the Hall of Fame induction ceremony was last evening.
Which is
I know
a hint.
You watched it.
Yeah.
There were 8 new players taken in, among them the late Junior Seau, hitting closer to home because of our wives, Jerome Bettis.
Mm-hmm.
I know you mentioned Tingleoff, the Minnesota Vikings center, who played a ridiculous amount of games and started continuously for how many years?
Right. I think it was 17 years, didn't miss a game or practice. And he was a linebacker in college, was an undrafted free agent. And this is back when they had tons of rounds, too. Undrafted free agent, the Vikings signed him, and they brought him in, and they're like, we want you to play for us, but we want you to play center. Well, so he went from linebacker to center and had a Hall of Fame career. And Fran Tarkington presented for him, and he
pretty good guy to do that for you.
He actually did all the speaking. They did the video montage thing, but then they Tinglehoff, I think it is. Like, they talk about how his name gets mixed up all the time, but he didn't actually say anything. And Tarkenton's up there and goes, my buddy's a man of very few words, but, I just wanted to thank his family and the Hall of Fame and, all the people who helped him get here. And then they basically walked off the stage. Like, it was really cool. And just the whole ceremony was really cool. And but seeing some of those older guys and the pure emotion for some of those guys is just awesome to see how they kind of get their moment to thank everyone. Like, people were giving Tim Brown a hard time because he went 31 minutes, which I think might be a record for a Hall of Fame induction. Okay. He spoke for 31 minutes. You're supposed to get 8, I think, is what they tell him to try and get to. But they know that the actual inductees are going to take however long as they want. And then at one point he rattled off all the quarterbacks that he caught touchdown passes from, which he was with the Raiders. So it's a lot of different quarterbacks because they were terrible.
About the only one I can name is Rich Gannon.
Right, yeah. And so there's a whole bunch there. And in that time, somebody was like, is he reminding us of how good he would have been if he had any good quarterbacks?
Well, Rich Gannon had a year or two
right.
here and there. But yeah, I understand being with the Raiders. Now, also going into the Hall, besides the handful that we mentioned already, were Charles Haley, who I believe is, if he's not, it doesn't have the record for most Super Bowl wins, he has to be tied for it, being with the 49ers and Cowboys in the 80s and 90s.
Real quick, my favorite part from Charles Haley's speech was his story about when he was golfing at Pebble Beach, and he drove his cart up on the green, and they came out and they were yelling at him like, hey, you can't drive your cart on the green. He's like, look around, it's all green. He threw in some other choice words there, but giving you the idea.
The incredibly talented offensive lineman Will Shields also was inducted, and Bill Polian and Ron Wolf made it in the class of 2015, the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, which leads us to today, which is the first official pro football game, NFL game, taking place in Canton, Ohio. The Hall of Fame game is tonight, and it actually features a team that we'll be talking about tonight. And I think the Vikings. Is it the Vikings Steelers?
Vikings and the Vikings.
No, we're talking AFC tonight.
Right. But Vikings Steelers.
Vikings Steelers is tonight. So the divisions that we're covering tonight and the next show, which is in 2 weeks, are 2 of the teams playing tonight. Steelers against the Vikings. Welcome everyone. You're listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show on Jimminger Radio. This is episode 182. We're continuing our 2015 NFL preview. And like I just mentioned, we are focusing on the AFC North. So we're going to get to talk about the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Cleveland Browns, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. But before we do that, I do think it's best that we mention this is an interactive show. We love to hear what you have to say about these NFL teams, about the topic we're covering. Suggest a topic, just leave a comment from last week's show. Anything you want to get out there is fine by us. There's multiple ways you can do that, and Justin has that information for you.
Yeah, we'd love to have your take on any of the things. I know we're starting to get to some of the divisions that hit a little closer to home for some of us and for some of our listeners. So we'd love to have your take or your questions on any of the things that we talk about. You can use the Mays Sandwich Shop hotline at 530-563-6297. Again, 530-563-6297. You can also use the Mays Sandwich Shop email inbox. You can use that at any time. And that is Joe Mays and J-Raff at gmail.com. Again, Joe Mays and J-Raff at gmail.com.
We also have a pretty nice social media presence, primarily on Facebook and Twitter. So you can like our fan page, follow us on Twitter at Joe Mays and J-Raff. Or if you'd also like to hear all about every show that we're doing, you can follow at Jiminger Radio, which is JMNJR_radio. That is on Twitter. Obviously, we have a page for the show on Facebook and for the radio production. So you can pretty much find everything on, if you're friends with us, mine or Justin's page. We got all that information for you. But again, email, Facebook, Twitter, phone call. We also have an ability to leave voicemail. You can find that on our website, joemaysandjraff.com or jmnjr.com. You can just kind of get everything you want can be found on the internet nowadays, and that's definitely true for us. So before we dive into talking about the AFC North, some sad news to pass along. Just a couple hours ago, it was announced that Frank Gifford had passed away of natural causes. I think they said that he was 84.
Yeah, 84.
And he was one of the early day big players, I believe, for the Giants.
Yeah, Giants.
Quarterback.
I think I saw he played. I think they listed him a cornerback and wide receiver. He kind of played all over.
Yeah, it was a different era.
Right, and then went on to be, for many people, the voice that they associated with Monday Night Football. There is kind of a divide, like a lot of people, I can't really speak for you, but I know for myself, I don't really remember Frank Gifford being the prominent, announcer that I think of. I think he announced into the time that we were watching football, but I think it was so early on that I didn't really pay attention. And I honestly don't know if I was watching Monday Night Football by the time he was done. I do not know.
Actually, a staple in my household was watching Monday Night Football. I remember doing it from a very young age, including at my grandparents' farmhouse. We actually went there on Monday evenings for homemade burgers and fries and apple pie, pretty much every Monday night, and watched the Monday Night Football game. So I definitely remember Gifford being one of the main voices of Monday Night Football. Obviously not when it was on ESPN. This is back when it was primarily on ABC. And on broadcast,
right.
not subscription cable package, but I believe it was Dan Dierdorf, Frank Gifford.
Yeah, what I do remember about Frank Gifford was I always got him confused with Al Michaels,
right?
Because they were to me, especially at the time, the older guy who was the other kind of I didn't really know who they were. I just kind of had him kind of confused a little bit there when I was younger. Obviously now I know the difference, but sad with his passing, and a lot of I saw started kind of exploding all over the place. He was in the he is in the Hall of Fame. So with that weekend, a lot of those guys are kind of collected in one area. And so, I'm sure a lot of stories were being shared this weekend.
Right. And, there's been a lot of people that have been on Monday Night Football. But the ones that I remember from a very young age were Al Michaels, Frank Gifford, and Dan Dierdorf. Those are the ones that were on from the late 80s and mostly 90s through the late 90s. That's kind of when I remember growing up, when I was 8 to 12, 8 to 13, when I was finally allowed to stay up to 9 o'clock and watch the first half of the games.
Yeah, think about that. The games didn't start till 9 o'clock.
9 Eastern.
Now, I mean, then they cut it back.
Yeah, and people got upset on the West Coast.
They've started basically working their way back to that. I think the Monday night game now kicks off at 8:37.
8:37.
Even though they advertise 8:30 kickoff, and they start going to the field at 8. So they're trying to please everyone there, I think.
Right. Most definitely. So, well, we've talked all football so far. We're just going to continue that now, but we're going to get on to our main topic, which is continuing our 2015 NFL preview, working on the AFC North. And like you said, this is a division that is a lot more interesting to our listeners, as our listeners are there's a lot of East Coast bias there because of our hometown location and the teams that we follow. We have listeners in Pennsylvania, so obviously Philadelphia and Pittsburgh definitely need to get attention, but also New England, we'll get to them in a couple of weeks. But we do have a contingent that listens from Baltimore. So that's the AFC North is definitely of interest with the Steelers and Ravens residing there. You have a college roommate, one of your best friends from college is a Browns fan.
Yeah, so a number of Browns fans there. That's tough.
that is tough. Our heart aches for you, Joe. We hope that you're able to come to terms with your fandom, and hopefully in the next 30-some years of your life, you'll get to see maybe one championship. Maybe that's asking too much.
And if it's the case, I hope it's the Browns. So.
That would be incredible if it was, but I hope it's the Cavs.
I knew. I was hoping you wouldn't pick up on it.
So, all right. This week, do we want to start at the top and work to the bottom, or do we want to start with the team that we think is going to probably perform the worst and work up?
To me, it's tough either way in this one. Well, let me rephrase that. It's not as easy as some of the others, I don't think. But I think I know where I'm going.
To build it up, I think I'd like to start at the bottom.
That's fine.
And I'll go first because I kind of been throwing it your way the last few weeks. So I will go first. It is quite difficult. I don't know if this division is...
I really don't know if anyone is really good in this division. But I don't think anyone's terrible in this division.
That's what I want to say is I don't think anyone's really bad. I think all four have a chance at the playoffs. Maybe minor, and the team that I'm going to pick here at the bottom. But I don't think any of them are bad enough to rule it out completely. Right. But I also don't know if any at the top are really going to challenge for an AFC title. So I'll start at the bottom, and as much as I hate to say it, I just don't see how the worst team is anyone but the Browns.
Exactly. What has any team shown you that would show that the Browns are not the worst team? Like that, and so have the Browns done anything to get significantly better, or have any of the other teams done anything? Because let's think about it. The other three teams were really good. I say really good. Playoffs or playoff contention, right there. So did any of those teams have something that happened that you're like, wow, they really fell off? Or did the Browns do something that says, oh, they really got a lot better? I don't know that either of those happened. I'm not saying all those teams that were better stayed really good. I don't know that that's the case. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But I have to agree with the Browns in last place because kind of like the opposite of what we do with some of the top teams where we're like, it's them. I'm picking them until someone proves differently. I'm sticking with this, and I bring that up because we kind of learned our lesson last year in the NFC North with that. But I feel that way with the Browns here. I think they are building, and now that you pull this up, I'm kind of surprised that they were 7-9 last year when I think back to it. But then I remember they went on a run where they were doing fairly well. It's just if I have to pick a team that I think is most likely to finish fourth, I'm picking the Browns.
Absolutely, and that's exactly how I went. They were 7-9 last year. I think that would be their absolute. Well, I shouldn't say absolute ceiling. If I think they can challenge for a wild card spot, they've obviously got to be able to probably get to 9 or 10 wins. Oh. Maybe I don't see the Browns getting to the playoffs.
Who's going to be the quarterback?
Right, exactly, and that's what it boils down to. You can build up the defense as much as you want. You can try to throw young playmakers out there, build up the line, whatever. If you don't have a quarterback...
You don't have a quarterback, and your best wide receiver is out. Like, forever.
Where do they go? Like, they're Cleveland. It's unfortunate that the team is not well run, that they can't seem to keep the guys that are good for whatever reason, be it on or off the field, injuries or extracurricular activities. Hopefully the front office is starting to turn it around, but, ownership's always in question. There's legal issues there.
I thought this happened, but I wasn't 100% sure when I thought back to it. But, yeah, this division sent 3 teams to the playoffs last year.
They did.
So when you look at that, you're talking about 3 playoff teams and a team that was 7-9. So this was a really strong division last year. Last place was 7-9, and the other 3 teams made the playoffs. Now, when you look at it a little more closely, like I don't. It's hard to predict 3 teams coming from 3 playoff teams coming from one division, but I'm not necessarily sure all 3 make it again. You know, that's not really going out on a limb, but like I still don't know that the Browns get back to 7 wins. Like, yeah. I just don't know if they can score enough points to get to. They scored like under 300 points last year. You know, in 16
right, exactly.
games.
That was going to be my main point. Is they didn't even score 300 points in 16 games last year. So Browns, I think their ceiling is 7-9. I would be actually, now that we've talked it through, I would be shocked if they got to 7 wins.
Right.
I think they're worse than that.
I think I want them to be better.
Oh, absolutely.
But when I actually look at
it,
I'm like, they might be at 5 wins again and picking again and trying to pick another first-round quarterback and screwing it up. I hope not for his sake.
So,
although if he went there and led them to be great, that would be incredible.
That
would be great.
I definitely am going. We're both in agreement. Browns in 4th place. I know we're not going to be in agreement from here on out, though.
Oh yeah.
So I went first at the bottom. So why don't you go first with the 3rd place team?
Third spot. I'm gonna go with the Ravens in 3rd spot.
All right. Okay.
And I was wavering until I said it.
Like last week with the Falcons and Saints and Panthers.
Yeah. Now, not that I had the Ravens winning, but like I was wavering back and forth with 2nd place with them. Now I said before, what did any of the teams that made the playoffs? What did they do? To get significantly worse? Well, the Ravens lost some key pieces. I say some key, like they already have some injuries in their secondary again.
Yep.
This year.
They're not getting anything on Matt Elam.
Right,
That's
exactly. Right. So, I think they have the most question marks.
They lost Torrey Smith.
Right. So they lost.
Is Justin Forsett a long-term answer at running back?
I say depleted weapons. They scored 409 points last year. So, they were scoring.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
At the same time, they lost some of those weapons. Still unsettled. Well, at running back, I don't know. They drafted a running back. I forget who it was. But when I look at just the remaining 3 teams, if I have to pick a team to finish 3rd, I think it's going to be Baltimore. Now, I put them probably at 8 or 9 wins. So they're not far off the pace that they were at last year. So could they be in contention? That's not who I thought. So
it was Buck Allen from USC. They also had a Brashad Perriman and Max Williams. So they have some young guys on offense, but
I knew they picked an offense. It was Perriman.
These players are kind of high risk, high reward. So until it works out, it's hard to say for certain.
Like Perriman's known as making the amazing catch but dropping the easy one.
Right.
And that's going to drives college football fans nuts. That's going to drive Baltimore fans insane. And as it would any NFL team. But I think the Ravens, they won 10 games last year. I think that would be a good goal for them to get back there. Now, they were depleted last year on defense as well, so maybe they have some depth there that's a little.
They have Elvis Dumerville. They have C.J. Mosley, who had a phenomenal rookie year last year. So they're not devoid of talent. There's nothing that stands out to me about them. And they barely made the playoffs. They were the 6th seed. They were the last wild card at 10-6. You flip 1 win somewhere and they don't make the playoffs. Texans, Chiefs, Chargers, Bills, and until the very end, the Dolphins. All those teams were within one or 2 games.
And they had a bunch of close games last year as well.
So you take away some of that talent, you add in some question marks. I just think Baltimore's a little bit worse. I'd probably peg them. If I'm saying Cleveland's 5-7, I'd say Baltimore's 7-9.
Yeah, I'm gonna put them at 8 or 9, but I could see them there. But it's funny because we talk about some of the other teams in this division as consistent. Well, the Browns on the negative end, the Steelers on the positive end. But in reality, the Ravens have been, once they got the ball rolling there, it's amazing how consistent they have been over the last maybe 7-8 years. And you probably can take that back longer. It seems like they are in contention every play.
I'm really surprised that I thought for sure you were going to stick with the Ravens. Now, I know your mom's not listening live tonight, so you're kind of a little bit shielded from the backlash. But I was actually going to lead into this because I thought for sure you were picking the Ravens at least second.
Well,
if not
I was
to
worried
win it.
about that when you said, I'm pretty sure we're not going to be the same. I was like, crap. I think I know at least that you thought that wasn't going to be the Ravens for me. Who do you have in third?
Well, I have the
think
Ravens.
I know. Yeah,
I have the
yeah.
Ravens. There was no way I thought you were picking them there. I was actually going to frame this as you're known as the Patriots hater. I was waiting for your mom to call me a Ravens hater because I'm always down on the Ravens. I'm always ripping on Flacco. I'm not a Ravens fan. You know my feelings towards Ray Lewis. And
Greatest linebacker
the
ever.
whole issue with how the Ravens destroyed Kerry Collins and the Giants in the Super
Thomas.
Bowl. And, with the love that Trent Dilfer gets for leading that team to the title and whatnot.
Hall of Famer.
So, I have issues with the Ravens. But I try, and I say this every time we talk about a team that I don't like, I try to remove that from my thought process. Oh, I know you don't. But I try to. And I really think that
This is
I don't
no
think I'm
place
being
for
unfair
rational
to them.
analysis.
I don't think I'm being unfair to the Ravens. I really think that
No,
they're going
I-
to take
I
a
would
slight
agree with
step
that.
back. And like I said, I think they're a 7-9 win team. It doesn't mean they can't make the playoffs.
Right.
It doesn't mean that's what they're going to win.
Because
they
they-
could win 3 games or they could win 13 games.
And-
I just think
and
if
I
I'm
think
betting,
they've-
I'm saying 7-9.
Right, and they've proven, at least to me, that if they do make the playoffs, regardless of how things turn out here, now we'll get to some of this later on, but they are always a scary matchup in the playoffs when they make it. No one wants to play them. No one wants to play them. So, if they can get into the playoffs, who knows what'll happen. However, I think they're at best as good as they were last year. That's kind of where I have them.
Now, I'm going to go here with who I have in second place. And now as I'm about to say this, I'm thinking, oh, man, this isn't good. I have the standings the same as they were last year. I can't say without looking at it, I always remember how the teams finish. But going in, this is exactly how I thought they were going to finish. Browns in last, Ravens in third, Bengals in second, and I'll just say it because there's only one team left. I have the Steelers winning the division for the second straight year. I'll start with the Bengals since we're working our way up. I have them in second. I think Andy Dalton is similar to Trent Dilfer. I don't think he's good enough to get the job done on his own in terms of winning the Super Bowl. But if you surround him with great special teams and a great defense, I think the team has the talent to win the Super Bowl. Obviously, I'm not going to say I have that happening. I have them finishing second and being one of the wild card teams, just like last year where they were the 5 seed. They went 10-5-1, stupid ties in the NFL. For real, NFL, get rid of that. Ask Donovan McNabb how that turns out. I was going to say something, but I better not. So, the Bengals I have in second place in the AFC North. I think they'll be similar to what they were last year. I don't see them winning less than 9 or less. I see them at 10, maybe 11 if things really work out. I think they have enough talent around Andy Dalton that they can make up for the issues that he presents at times. I don't think they lost too much in the offseason or something that they can't overcome. They added a couple players that I do really like in the draft. Cedric Ogbuyi from Texas A&M is injured and probably not going to play this year, but they also brought in Jake Fisher, who was at times thought of as a possible first-round pick. He went in the middle end of the second round from Oregon. So they addressed some deficiencies along the offensive line. They also brought in an underrated player in Paul Dawson, a linebacker from TCU that I really liked. So I think they definitely have a potential to be a pretty strong team this season. And the backfield, it's hard to really top. It's not flashy, but Jeremy Hill to Giovanni Bernard to Rex Burkhead, that's a decent 3-man rotation. Obviously, A.J. Green's one of the best in the game. And when Marvin Jones, Greg Little, Denarius Moore, Mohamed Sanu, and Brandon Tate. I mean, now some of those guys are more return guys, but still, you have the potential in special teams. You have potential at running back, wide receiver. You definitely have the talent at tight end with Tyler Eifert there. He's a great guy. Hopefully, everything's good for him on the in terms of his elbow. I think that injury was last year, so that was debilitating. But they also have a ton of talent on defense, and it's a coach's job to get that talent out. And the linebackers in perfect. They added A.J. Hawk. They have Ray Malaluga, and now they added Paul Dawson. As long as they start to get production out of their first-round pick from a year ago, Jaquez Denard, pairing him with Leon Hall and Brandon Gee in the secondary. Again, you still have Adam Pac-Man Jones there on special teams, too. So there's a ton a ton of talent there. I think if the coaching staff does their job and Andy Dalton is a serviceable quarterback, I think this is a 10 to 11 win team, and I have them second place in the North.
Yeah, and I really want them. I really want to pick them to win it. I think I was kind of in the boat of giving Andy Dalton the benefit of the doubt early on. I felt like they didn't have enough around him to really expect this for him to carry it and do all the things that they needed to do. As I kind of look at it, I think that kind of labels him in a way I wasn't expecting it to. I wasn't trying to label him when I was thinking that way. I was kind of trying to think, well, he needs help. But I think the fact that I'm like, oh, he needs help kind of is telling me the message I was trying to avoid all along.
Right.
Now, I think he's better than some people will still give him credit for. I think there are some people who would argue they are not going to win a playoff game. Like, he can't win a playoff game, blah, blah, blah. I think that's garbage. He was without A.J. Green in his playoff game last year. If you go without A.J. Green, if you take the number one receiver off of many of the teams in the playoffs, they're going to struggle. And it was a bad matchup. They were basically playing running backs at wide receiver last year in their playoff game. It wasn't working out very well. I think they've got the potential to win 11 games, but I'm still slotting them in the second spot as well, because I just think that we can't. While the defense is really good, I want to see the offense prove to me that there's any kind of consistency there. They've got the weapons now, at least enough weapons where they should be able to be solid. They're a great offense built for the AFC North, where they're going to play they're going to play games in Cincinnati, Cleveland, and in Pittsburgh. I think they're built great for those type of games, especially in November and December. Great defense and big strong guys on offense. However, that kind of leads me to the number one team again, the Steelers. I think the Steelers, I almost didn't put them at the one because I still feel like there's a lot of questions on their defensive side.
Yeah.
However, because, and this is crazy to think about, getting rid of Dick LeBeau helping you. It's not so much getting rid of Dick LeBeau that I think is going to help them.
It's bringing in the fresh perspective.
Bringing in the new perspective. For years, everyone thought, while Dick LeBeau's tough to figure out, there are going to be patterns just within the chaos. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, knowing what you don't know, basically, against Dick LeBeau was helpful to teams, and they just started just destroying. Like, their defense has been awful. And I mean, they've had their moments, but nothing like what Steelers football is or is expected to be. I think their offense is going to be really good.
Yeah.
And I think a really good offense with a slightly improved defense is going to be enough to get 11 or 12 wins and win the division for the second straight year.
I really think the only thing that'll derail the Steelers from winning back-to-back division titles is an injury to Ben Roethlisberger. And we've seen him be pretty resilient to injury, at least something that's going to knock him out for the long term, other than I think when he had, an emergency appendectomy right before the 2006 season, which was supposed to benefit me watching the Dolphins play the Steelers. Then Charlie Batch decided to take a poop on my Dolphins.
Another Pittsburgh guy.
That Thursday night
literally a
opening
Pittsburgh
game.
guy.
But yeah, if Roethlisberger stays healthy, I think that they can survive the two games without Le'Veon Bell. But because of the offensive talent they have, I'm not sure they're going to miss him too much.
Right.
They signed D'Angelo Williams, so he'll shoulder the load for 2 games. They also have Dry Archer, who is a nice kind of a poor man's
Darren
Sproles. Wide receiver, you have Antonio Brown, who I doubt he'll be able to duplicate what he did last year, but he burst onto the scene.
I expect the younger guys to step it up and be better.
Right.
Martavius Bryant and Marcus Wheaton.
Marcus Wheaton is a guy that I've been waiting for to bust out. Maybe this is his year. Martavis Bryant, although he just did go down with an injury, it's a short-term thing. He should be back for the start of the season. He looked incredible at times last year. And they added Sammy Coates in addition to also having Darius Hayward-Bates. So they have the size, they have the speed, they have the hands, they have everything covered there. They still have Heath Miller and Matt Spaeth. They also added our boy Jesse James, who has looked good in camp, I hear.
I think
so
he's
things
gonna
are looking up for him.
Yeah.
They have an interesting group of veterans on the offensive line. We haven't seen the max potential from David DeCastro, but Marcus Pouncey, year in, year out, is always one of the better centers. They're still trying to find what works in a guard or the opposite guard next to DeCastro. They have Ramon Foster there now. And tackle is always, kind of a swinging door from them. That's been their issue. But if they can
Pouncey
keep
stay healthy,
can they keep Roethlisberger healthy? This offense should be one of the best in the league, just like it was last year. And you mentioned it when we started talking the Steelers. It actually comes down to the defense, which is crazy to think. You're talking about the Steelers, the
question mark being on defense.
The question mark is on defense. But
in reality, it's been like that the last couple of years.
It really has. Now, I think they have the linemen. Cameron Hayward, Joe Kruger. They got some big bodies in Daniel McCullers and Steve McClendon. They have Cam Thomas and Stephon Tuitt, who should be a big guy in his second year. But where they're kind of still trying to find young talent, at least to explode on the scenes, is that linebacker, which is crazy to think. Now, they added Bud Dupree in the draft this year, but you're kind of waiting. This is a put up or shut up year for Jarvis Jones, who I raved about 2 years ago. He hasn't been able to do much. Sean Spence been injured most of his career.
Ryan Shazier
inside Lawrence Timmons, doing his thing, but Ryan Shazier missed a ton of time last year. He was their first round pick last year. He didn't do too much because of injury.
And so basically, you need to see something out of Ryan Shazier. Again, because he missed a bunch last year. And Jarvis Jones, who I think was the number one the year before, or 2 years before. I don't really remember. But you have like 2 first-round talent in linebackers there, just in those 2. I'm not even looking at the others. And they may have missed on both.
Dupree, Jones, Shazier, and Timmons were all first-round picks. Now, Timmons was a while ago.
Both of them, like a bunch of them, have shown the ability, like flashes of being amazing. And if they can kind of get that working together in some dynamic, look out. Because a good linebacking core is always interesting because it helps your front guys and it helps your back guys, So it'll be interesting to kind of see there. And also just not knowing what to expect from the Steelers defense. At least I say that. I know other people, they're not going to pull, a new defensive coordinator out of like high school and they don't know what this guy's going to do. But at least there's going to be some degree of newness there, and so I think that's going to help them. I think Dick LeBeau, I forget where he moved on to, but I think it's going to be good for him. I think it's good for the Steelers. Time just for a fresh take there.
The secondary is where there's a lot of question marks, but I don't know if it's good or bad because they lost Ryan Clark, Troy Polamalu, and Ike Taylor, but at their stage of their careers or even talent overall, I don't know if that's losing too much. Now, Troy Polamalu, when he was healthy and when he was younger, he was one of the best ever for a short period of time. Obviously 5 years from now, we'll be debating, does he deserve to be in the Hall? But, at the end of his career, he missed more time than he was playing, and when he was playing, it wasn't great. Ryan Clark was always serviceable.
I'd say
outstanding there.
Since before their last Super Bowl appearance.
Probably right. Was that 2010?
Yeah, something like that.
Now, Ike Taylor's one that we always, and I don't know if we voiced it much on this show, but he's always one that we were like, how is he always considered good?
I don't know how anyone has ever had him. And people are like, he's the number one corner. For a terrible secondary, yeah, he is. And that's the problem. Year after year, Ike Taylor was the number one corner on this team. And they've had a terrible pass defense every one of those years. Oh, my gosh, he's been bad.
Now, they were able to add our boy Brandon Boykin from the Eagles in a trade recently.
I hate to see him go. I think they said he's been getting some work outside, so he's finally going to get his shot. I hate to say it, kind of hope it doesn't work. I mean, more as the Eagles fan. I'd hate to see them let him go and be like, yeah, look, he was able to play outside. Now, to be fair, if the Eagles have guys who are playing outside and it works out, okay, they got to pick for a guy who they weren't going to play over the guys they had. No big deal. But, he's going to get a shot, which that's what I was more frustrated. I felt like he never got a fair shot at the outside guy. Now, that's from seeing the games on the weekday. I've never seen an Eagles practice. You know what I mean? So, I don't know, what the coaches saw and things like that. I hope he does get his chance in Pittsburgh. As the Eagles fan, I hope it doesn't necessarily work out. Although I hope he does play. I hope they play a lot of nickel defense, and he's the nickel cornerback again because
he excels there.
I believe that 5th round pick goes up to a 4th round pick if he plays a certain number.
Sure,
of snaps
that helps the
year.
Eagles. Now, the one thing that I think we should mention before we sign off here, wrap up the AFC North, is the Steelers have a tough schedule. Not only do they have to play their own division, which means 2 against the Ravens, 2 against the Bengals, and 2 against the Browns, but they play both West divisions, which means you got to face the Seahawks, the Rams and Cardinals, who we expect to not be pushovers, the 49ers, not looking too good for them. But then you also got to face another division, which got 3 talented teams in the Broncos, Chiefs, and Chargers, and then the Raiders.
Well, and look at some of the oddball ones that they have. They have the Patriots that they have to play.
In New England, opening night, September 10th.
Right. And they have to play the Colts. So they have to play those 2 teams on top of those tough divisions.
They
have
have a late bye. Their bye is the weekend before Thanksgiving.
So you hope you're healthy, because then that can be kind of rejuvenating. Sometimes if you get nicked up a little early, you want the early bye. It can be a long stretch down the
Now they don't travel for a month. They play at Kansas City October 25th. Then they don't play again until November 29th. But that's at Seattle.
Right. So it's a long way.
And that's the start of their final 6 games. 4 of their final 6 are on the road, and these are the teams they're playing: at Seattle, host Indianapolis, at Cincinnati, host Denver, at Baltimore, at Cleveland.
Yeah.
That is brutal.
Away 3 out of the last 4 weeks, 4 out of the last 6.
And 5 of those 6, I think, have potential to be playoff teams, if not some of the better ones to challenge for the Super Bowl.
Right, yeah, I would agree.
We'll know who the Steelers are. Hopefully we'll know by week 12 before the game against the Seahawks. If they're 7-3 entering those last 6,
they want to be sitting at 8 wins going into the bye.
You want 8 wins, because then if you only win 2 of those final 6, you're probably safe. Probably,
right.
Not necessarily, but probably. They pretty much have to be 8-2 entering that stretch,
which means they need to win all their home games and 2 of their away games before the bye. That's just speaking in the games before the bye.
So they'd have to beat the Chiefs, Chargers, Rams, or Patriots.
Right.
I mean, this is not an easy schedule. This is a tough schedule.
No, yeah. So they're going to have to prove it. I think their offense is going to be good enough. I don't know about the defense, but I think we're going to see a slight improvement. However, the defense has been sketchy enough that I don't know it's going to be enough. I don't know. But I when I was looking at it, this is a little bit of a shift maybe, but I'm going to go with the Steelers known on offense as opposed to Cincinnati's known, which is their defense. I'm going to go with the Steelers.
Yep, and that's what I did too. They won 11 games in the regular season last year. I think I'll put them at 11, squeaking by the Bengals for the division. I was going to say I think they're talented enough to maybe get to 12.
Yeah, I think
man,
they may
that
get there,
schedule.
But yeah, what? That was pre-looking at the schedule. Looking at the schedule, it's going to be tough to get to 12.
So, okay. Just like that, right on cue, the Pittsburgh Steelers tweeted out, when you realize there's less than an hour to kick off, here we go. And it's a nice little gif of a guy freaking out. So, and that's exactly how we feel. Because, like we said at the start of the show, pro football is back now. Less than an hour. 8 o'clock on NBC, Sunday Night Football returns. Hooray. And you will have football basically every weekend until February 7th.
Every weekend?
If you count the Pro Bowl, every weekend until February 7th.
Every weekend until Valentine's Day, there's football now. So
absolutely.
Enjoy.
Amazing.
Enjoy.
Absolutely amazing. So that pretty much wraps it up here for this week on episode 182. I know you have a shout out before we sign off here.
Yeah, my wife's birthday is tomorrow, actually.
So happy birthday to Jamie. Anything else to add?
No.
I think I will mention again that I think I said this before, but Justin and I are actually going to be starting a second show.
I think we alluded to it.
We alluded to it. I'm not sure we mentioned it, but we're going to be basically bringing back or rebooting what was known as the Bulldog Hour. That was hosted by former Wilson football head coach Jim Cantafio for about 10 years or so. I don't know if he did it every year or not, but it was late 90s through mid 2000s while he was the coach at Wilson. He just kind of gave you an inside look at the Wilson football program. Justin and I have we're way into the part where we're ready to start recording for our first show. It's not going to be live off the bat. We're going to get a pilot episode up. It is going to be an hour long, and it's going to be even more in depth than what we do now. We're going to have interviews with the coaching staff and some of the premier senior players. We're going to have highlights. We're going to do game recaps and previews. We're hopeful to talk to some of the local media players, Jeff Reiner from Penn Live, Mike Drago from the Reading Eagle, maybe talk to the guys from 69 News as well, Dan Mascaratolo and the like up there in the Lehigh Valley. But it's an interesting prospect. We're working things through now, and we're hoping to debut the first episode actually 3 weeks from tonight on Sunday, August 30th. Hopefully we'll be able to publish the final version of the first episode onto YouTube, and hopefully from there it snowballs and we can continue to do it. But there'll be more information about the second show from Justin and I in just a couple weeks.
So keep looking for that.
Yes, absolutely do. And we'd love to hear feedback on this show and any other show that we end up doing. And there's multiple ways that you can contact us. You can go to joemaysandjraff.com to get all your fill of the radio show. And the new show can be found at bulldoghour.com. But I think that's it for tonight. Thanks for joining us. That wraps up the 182nd episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show.
We hope you tune in every Sunday evening at 6:30 for our take on sports. Until next time, I'm J-Raff.
And I'm Joe Mays. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. Don't forget, you can download each episode of the show from the podcast section of the iTunes Store. We'll see you next time, and thanks again for listening.